Good morning. Good morning. I know some folks are still getting foods. Feel free to head that way and grab some food throughout our morning, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning and welcome to Chinese Immersion Families. I know there's a number of us who are new to the program, so welcome. My name is Shirley De La Fuente Lam, Language Acquisition Coordinator. I work with the Chinese Immersion Program. I also work with the EAL program. This is my third year at SAS, and previously I was assistant principal at an immersion school in California. Here are some important folks who are going to be joining us and who will speak later on. I'll introduce them briefly now, and then before their session, they'll talk a little bit more about who they are. We have Rosa Kay. She is one of our grade 2 immersion teachers. And she's also an immersion PLC coach. For those of you new to SAS, you'll see PLC around a lot, and it stands for Professional Learning Community. And she's the Chinese immersion PLC coach. We also have Sherry Peng, and she is also a grade 2 teacher. She works closely with Rosa, and she's also one of our PLC coaches. We also have Paloma Julian, and she is our director of world languages. Amy Guile, Executive Director for Teaching and Learning. And at the back, we have Ghazal, who is our Parent Engagement Lead. We did not talk about our outfits, but we are all in black today. Here is our agenda for today. We are going to talk about our program review that we conducted last school year. We're going to talk about updates and the recommendations that have already happened and will be happening this school year and beyond. I know there are some questions about how do I support my child in this program. We'll give you some ideas and also hear from each other about what you do for your children. And then we'll introduce the Chinese Immersion Handbook. I know there's a lot of information coming at you, so there's this handbook for you to refer to. And we'll talk a bit about what is the Chinese learning journey beyond 5th grade in middle school and high school. And at the end, we'll have a session for questions and answers. Let's get started with getting to know a little bit of who is in the room. So at your table, you may know 1 or 2 people, or you may know nobody since you're new. So this is a chance just to connect with each other. So in a bit, if you could introduce yourself, how many years you've been in Singapore, what grades your children in the immersion program are, and then just some questions to ground our talk. Just as our children are learning Chinese in this program, what has your language learning journey been? Even if you're monolingual, right? We are always surrounded by multiple languages, especially as we live internationally. So take a second to look around and connect with each other. And when I raise my hand, it'll just be an indication that we're going to regather and focus back at the front. All right, enjoy talking. All right, sorry to interrupt. We're going to go ahead and continue with our presentation. I hope you made some connections with other folks at your table. I heard a lot of diverse experiences that you all as parents, as families have had. In the beginning of every school year, our educator teams get together and we create working norms. We create working norms as to how we're going to work together, how we're going to collaborate together, what's going to happen if we disagree about a method. In the same way, our students create learning community norms as they are in a community all year, learning together, having conflicts together about maybe their place in line, right, or a game, and how they're going to learn and celebrate each other. Our immersion community is a unique community within the SAS community because oftentimes we are in this community for 5, 6, 7 years. And so these are our SAS community norms. As we are in community, maybe in physical spaces like this coffee, in virtual spaces like our WhatsApp groups, or in out-of-school spaces like play groups, we ask that everyone who's part of SAS adheres to these community norms. And so I invite you this year, and all the years that we'll be in community together, to hold to these norms, to contribute productively and positively, to refrain from discrimination, to go to the source like you are today, to center the student experience, to share accurate information, and to assume positive intent. As we're in community together, we are also a diverse community, and so we have folks with different desires, different backgrounds, and how are we going to be in community together? Here's some questions to ponder as we are in community together. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all who are concerned? Will it build better community and friendships? And is it beneficial to all? I wanted to talk a little bit more about this centering the student experience, because this is what at SAS educators do. And we look at a child holistically. We honor the child's growth. We use positive framing. We enjoy who they are. And we maintain confidentiality. We do this for your children. And so we ask that you do this for your own child as well as other people's children. Each child has a different learning journey. And so we ask, as we are in this community together, that we center who our kids are, and that I invite all of us to remember these norms and to help invite each other into these norms. All right, a little contextualizing about the immersion program. We are a program that sits within the ES, so we work very closely with elementary school leaders. I mentioned Rosa and Sherry. We also have Caroline Doyle, who is our English immersion PLC leader. And we also work very closely with the Office of Learning. Amy Guile is executive director, and Paloma is our World Language Director. It is not up here, but I also work very closely with the other curriculum coordinators, Jane and Britta, because whatever we do in our program is in coordination, is in alignment with what else is happening within the ES. So when there's a social studies review or a English language arts review, we work in coordination with that. We are not a program that sits in isolation. We are a program that sits in horizontal alignment. All right, so this review that we had last school year is not unique to the immersion program. It is something that we do at SAS. We do it for social studies, for ELA, and so it is just a way for us to make sure that we are staying up to date with research, that we are looking and seeing what are the strengths in our program and where are areas of growth. And we ground what we do in our review with our strategic direction. Overarching everything we do is joy and purpose. And so when we think about our students' experience at school, it is not just academics. We think about how can they engage with academics with joy, how can they engage with academics with purpose. And our strategic focus, excellence, extraordinary care, and possibilities. And so when we talk, we come from this framework. I know sometimes some families may, because of your values, may only focus on one, or may only be thinking about what is academic excellence, right? Or what is extraordinary care? But as educators, we look at the whole picture. And so that is how we are stemming a lot of the decisions that we make. So I just wanted to give you a little balcony view of why we do what we do. So we had a review last school year. In June 2025, we were here. The review report came out. And so today is just us unpacking what that looks like. All right, we had a number of celebrations from this review. First, the immersion program is a signature, unique, and is a popular program at SES. Some of you here have been on the wait list to join for several years. And something that came out through and through is that we have dedicated and hardworking teachers. Our immersion program in a very large elementary school, maybe one of the largest in the world, is that we have a program where students really know each other. Because of our small cohort, students feel like they know each other well from year to year. And that is not a common experience for the rest of the elementary school. I talked about the horizontal alignment. So this means that we want a student's experience in the SAS elementary school to be similar, whether that's happening in English or Chinese. What they're learning in social studies, will happen in Chinese, but it's the same content as what they're learning in the English medium program. So that is something that is unique in our immersion program. That is a reason why many of you may have joined our program, because we are not entirely separate. We are not isolated. We are connected with what else is happening holistically. And our students are excelling academically in Chinese and English. And I'm going to show you some data in a second, but I wanted to talk about this analogy of a photo book. I know we probably don't have physical photo books anymore, but many of you know the concept of a photo book. And when we look at student progress, student growth, we think of it as a photo book. There are lots of pieces of evidence, classroom observations, their classwork, their discussions that they're having with their students, and standardized test is a snapshot in that larger photo book of student progress. So I just want us to have that framing as I go into the data, which is about standardized test. It is a snapshot. It is helpful, right? But it is not the whole story all the time. So we take the STAMP test, and the STAMP, a little bit about STAMP, is it is aligned with our ACTFL standards. And ACTFL, the description is up there. And it is a framework that measures language proficiency that is used internationally. The same framework that is used for students in kindergarten, as well as adults who are in a professional setting. And the gray is the international average of students in similar programs, okay? And our blue is our immersion students. So as you can see, we are performing above the international average. Here's another view of our immersion STAMP progress throughout the years. Okay. And I also wanted to share Ames Web data. I know sometimes there's this narrative that our students in immersion in English, because there's so little time in English, are lagging a little behind. So we looked at the data, especially coming out from our ELA review, where we have leaned more into the science of reading with more structured literacy in our English program. And so here's our data that we are performing on par with students, on par or sometimes above students who are not in the immersion program in English literacy as well. This is kindergarten, first and second grade from last school year. And we looked at MAP data, MAP English language usage data. And this was from last school year in the spring. Red is immersion. I will be sending the slide deck and this recording so you can look at this in more detail. And this is our MAP English reading scores for grades 3, 4, and 5. So in many aspects, we are on par, sometimes a little higher than students who are not in immersion. Our program, for those of you who are new, has been around for 9 years. And a question that's shifted throughout the years is, who is this program for and who can thrive in this program? Originally, if you were here in the beginning, this program was not for Chinese heritage speakers, and it was not for students who might need learning support needs. And our values are that we want to make sure everyone is included. And so that has shifted over the years, and it's something that we're continuing to investigate to make sure that all students can thrive in this program. We have renewed guiding principles. I'm not going to, principles, whole child development. We talked a little bit about our desire to care holistically for the child. Intentionality. We want to make sure that when we proceed, we are being thoughtful about the language ratio, thoughtful about what instruction is used. Bilingualism and biliteracy, of course, is a principle, and cultural interconnectedness. But overarching all of this, we will come back as educators. How are we helping our children develop as whole children? Not just as Chinese language learners, but how are they developing social emotional skills? How are they still thriving in English? That is what we are going to refocus on as with these renewed principles. This is a lot of words, so I'm not going to read it word by word, but I'll bring up a few things. In our renewed philosophy, okay, we want to make sure as we're grounded both in Common Core standards, as schools in America are, as well as our actual language proficiency guidelines for Chinese. We acknowledge that language acquisition is and can be a cognitively demanding process, so we scaffold learning, both intervention and extension, as needed. And we want to have a community where students engage with purpose, build confidence, and learn both languages with joy. And so here are some of our review recommendations and next steps. There are several categories, and we'll talk about each of these in more detail. For those of you who are familiar with school systems, whatever recommendations or change schools have, there is a transition process. We want to make sure our educators are well prepared. We want to make sure that students have a seamless process. And so some of the recommendations I'm sharing are immediate. They've already happened or will be happening this year. And some of them are recommendations that will take a few years to make sure we thoughtfully transition both our educators and our students. So with curriculum enhancements, teacher investment, stronger integration, expanding authentic language opportunities, and thinking about holistic support. For those literacy nerds in the room, this is Scarborough's Rope. And this is aligned with structured literacy or science of reading. This is where, as a school, our English language curriculum has moved in the past several years. And we used to be a school that was more whole language. And this is also where we're moving as an immersion program. How are we teaching Chinese skills in discrete ways so that when we put them together, students are more increased in their automaticity and their fluency and comprehension. And so this is what it looks like for Chinese. Okay, similar framework for English. And I'm going to hand it off to Rosa, who's going to talk a little bit more about our Chinese curriculum.
Hello. Thank you, Shuli. I'm Rosa. This is my 7th year at SAS. I know a lot of you because I've taught the first cohort up to the 2nd grade cohort this year. This is my 3rd year as the PLC leader, 2nd year co-leading the review, and the 1st year being the coach. I have a lot of hats on. I'm also doing a doctorate degree, so I still teach the 2nd grade. And today, I'm going to talk about the Pinyin curriculum and the foundational skills curriculum with you, with some resources on the table. Later on, you will have a chance to look at these materials and do some reflections and put down your thoughts about them, okay? So, 2 years ago, even before we started this official program review, we started some focus groups, representatives from teachers from each grade level, to look at our Pinyin curriculum and better immersion curriculum. The foundational skills curriculum. And even though, as you can see from the results that Shuli just shared, it's a very strong curriculum. But then at SAS, we always strive for the best. So we look for areas of growth in those two things. And for Pinyin, we really dig deep into the research about what it means to language learners. And we found that it's very beneficial for early stage Chinese learners to learn Pinyin. It not only improves their reading fluency and comprehension, but also, more importantly, actually, to boost their confidence in understanding the language, and also eventually push their output in their writing. So our first graders receive Pinyin instructions, and they'll learn initial sounds, 声母, and some simple vowels, 单韵母. They also start to recognize the 4 tones, which is the hardest element in Chinese language. And they'll learn to, they start blending some of the sounds together. Our 2nd graders will learn the complete system of Pinyin. So they will consolidate and they will do some revisions on the initial sounds. And then they'll finish with by learning all the final sounds. 单韵母, 复韵母. They'll learn how to create with Pinyin. They'll learn how to put the tones on the Pinyin and also use the Pinyin in their writing. And the learning doesn't just stop there. The 3rd graders still will be consolidated in their Pinyin learning. They also try to immerse that into the input system. So they start learn how to type in Pinyin as well. And we also recognize the importance of early pre-Pinyin, pre-phonics period. So actually our kindergarteners also will go through some song singing activities, games to raise their phonemic awareness, okay? And this is our roadmap for our Pinyin curriculum. This was last year, kindergarten and first grade already started their instruction. And this is where we are right now. Grade 2, we started the Pinyin curriculum. K and 1 continue with their instruction. And right now, grade 3 is still learning Pinyin because before this change, they didn't have any Pinyin instruction. So next year will be a full implementation of this new Pinyin curriculum. Well, some parents may ask, well, I can see how this makes sense, but my child is learning English phonics and Pinyin at the same time. Are they gonna get confused, right? And we actually really looked deep into the research about this. And in the recent decade, there are a lot more research on bilingual programs, immersion programs, and we found that they actually complement each other if we look at it very carefully. If there's no planning, no articulation, yes, there could be some confusion. But last year, all of our teachers, including the English immersion teachers, we went to this 2-day training on phonics and Pinyin instruction. So when we use a metacognitive lens into these two systems, into learning these two systems, they actually complement each other, right? For example, when we learned I was teaching the sound C, as in the letter C. I'll tell them, oh, actually, it sounds very similar to TS, the C sound in English. So with these kind of lens, and we actually deliberately teach the young students about these, it actually facilitates both the growth in both tracks, okay? And we sent out a survey earlier about this parent coffee, and a lot of you asked about the new better immersion curriculum that we are adopting. So 2 years ago, on par with the Pinyin curriculum review, there's also a focus group looking at foundational skills. And we found that over the years, we've developed these materials, and based on the standards, they're very valuable, very good, but there's this little lack of articulation and continuum in the program. So the group of teachers sat down, we looked at criteria for a very strong foundational skills curriculum, what it means to have a good curriculum. And with those criteria in mind, we shortlisted 2 curricula that we piloted last year. And we looked around the world. We even thought about making a school-based curriculum. You know, with our professions, with our resources, maybe we can make a school-based curriculum. So last year, kindergarten, second grade, and grade 5, we piloted 2 shortlisted curricula for 2 weeks. And we collected student data. We even surveyed the students, do you like it? How much do you like it? Why do you like it, right? We collected teacher feedback. We look at the resources, support, training that these curriculum provides. And better immersion came out the strongest for a number of reasons. And I'll talk about the characteristics, all right? And one of the strongest characteristics of better immersion is it closely tied to standards. It correlates with ESFL proficiency targets, and it elevates rigor through alignment to common core standards for Mandarin immersion setting. What does that mean? Because common core standards, they write language proficiency, they write language standards based on English language, right? So some of the standards, it applies to language learning as in general, but not necessarily fits into Chinese language learning. They're very different languages, right? But Better Immersion does a very good job in really looking into the standards. Okay, I'm not just translating the English text into Chinese to deliver that standard. They actually look into classics in Chinese literature. They look at the world popular texts or articles that they feel like they see fit in the curriculum. So it is closely tied to standards, but it really has the characteristics of Chinese language. It's also, because it's written for immersion programs, not just a Chinese language program, it's closely tied to content knowledge as well. So on each unit, we'll see standards that's connected to NGSS, which is the science unit, and NHS, which is the social studies standards, okay? Better Immersions offers 9 levels in their curriculum, from starter to level 8. And this is how we're gonna map them to our SAS Chinese immersion grade levels. Kindergarten will learn starter, all the way up to grade 5, which will cover levels 6, 7, and 8. The length of each level is a little bit different, so even like, wow, you see grade 5s are doing a lot, but the levels 6, 7, and 8 are shorter in length of time, but more rich in terms of content and depths of their knowledge. It's developed around 4 themes: identity, responsibility, changes, and action in 4 scopes. So they all fall under self, relationships, community, and world. And that is how they blend in the social studies and science concept into the language learning. One of the strengths of Better Immersion is also how they spiral up the foundational skills of Chinese language learning. As you can see, this is the sample for the level starter text, which our kindergarteners will use. The text is there, and when they are doing the vocabulary acquisition, there's a strong focus on the elements of the Chinese words and characters. So you can see the origins of the characters are shown here. Chinese morphology really grounds into strokes, radicals, and formation of the characters, right? And Better Immersion really spends a lot of time into delivering these concepts. And all the way to level 8 for grade 5, as you can see, the volume of the text has grown, obviously. They use pinyin, but they don't put pinyin on all the characters. They only put pinyin on the characters they think that the student haven't learned yet. So it's not just decoding the pinyin all over, but acquiring vocabulary naturally with the support of pinyin. And as you can see the vocabulary list, there's still a strong focus in the radicals and the formation of the Chinese characters and the sentence patterns, grammar, all the convention elements. So this is one of the strong characteristics of Better Immersion. And another element that stood out was the inclusivity of the program. So any Chinese language curriculum can bring you texts that goes with the development of Chinese language acquisition. But Better Immersion offers personalized learning journey. Every lesson, every day, there are language objectives and content objectives. And for all the materials that they provide, there are also differentiated support. For example, for each guided reading text that we are going through with the small group, there are 4 different levels of text that deliver the same goal, the same objective. And within that 4 levels of text, there are texts that support students that need more scaffolding, all the way to a more neonative level of text. So teacher can flexible group their students and then pick the materials that's suitable to deliver the same goal. It also provides formative and summative assessments for teachers to track growth, and also for the program to track growth, over the years. All right, so that we use the same ruler, we use the same data to see how they progress in this curriculum. How can you help at home? And Back to Immersion actually writes, it's called Homeschool Connection for every unit. It looks very similar to the illustrative math family support material. It tells you what are the goals, what the key vocabularies are, and how you can support from home. And once we implement this curriculum, you will receive that maybe from teacher's newsletter, maybe from Seesaw messages. So you know what you can do if you want to support the Chinese language learning from home. There's written materials. There's also a complete online system that students has access to at school and from home. There are also many interactive ebooks available on the system, on their platform. So in terms of timeline, this year, this is 2025 to 6 semester 1, we will roll out a series of teacher trainings so that, like Julie said, we want to make sure our teachers are equipped with what it is, why we are doing it, how we are doing it. Last week, we actually finished our first round of training already. And later on, I think end of this month, I will run lab sites for them to look at how to deliver the lessons. We'll receive feedback. We'll give the time for the teachers to plan for the for quarter 2. So after fall break, all immersion teachers will pilot 1 unit from Better Immersion. And from that, they'll co-plan, they'll co-teach, and they'll figure out what are the best ways to make the best use of this curriculum. All right, in semester 2, there will be a rollout. So from K to 5, we'll start using the Better Immersion curriculum for the Chinese language foundational skills part. Starting from August 2026, there will be a full implementation. And before that, teachers will be given time to plan for the full implementation. And they will start, thinking about what kind of data do I collect? How do we compare? How do we do small groups given the data? And so the data we collect is to inform our instruction, right? So the experience that we will get from this year will benefit the full implementation in August next year. So now's the time for you to look at some materials. On most of the tables, I think maybe not the 2 at the back, I'm sorry. I got 8 copies, and on each table you'll see 1 student-facing material for each grade level, each level. So you see 9 books that are student-facing materials, and you will have 10 minutes to look at them, and also have these 3 guiding questions in mind. First, what do you see in them? And also, what do you think it means for your child's learning with this curriculum? And also, what do you wonder about how it will look like in the classroom? And please jot down your thoughts on Post-it notes. On your right-hand side, there are 3 posters. If you have thoughts about what you see, what you think, what you wonder, you can put your ideas on the anchor charts. After the coffee, when we send out the summary, we'll also respond to your wonders. Okay? 10 minutes. So for the next step of our foundational skills, we are going to revise our vocabulary list and look at the immersion exit targets, which means what the 5th graders can do when they finish the immersion program in the elementary school with the updated Better Immersion curriculum. There will be continued alignment with the ELA and social studies because they are also going through reviews. So if there's any edits or changes in the standards, then we'll look back to our curriculum and see how we can all work together. Okay?
All right, so that was our first recommendation, curriculum enhancements. I'll talk a bit about the other recommendations that are in place or will be in place. Number 2 is teacher investment. We have increased our PLC coach number from we had one teacher previously supporting our immersion teachers to 2 this school year, so that we have more one-on-one teacher development in the immersion context. This year, we also have planned professional development to deepen skills for teachers in regards to developing students holistically through social emotional learning skills, acknowledging that sometimes there are different needs that arise with the cognitive energy that it takes to learn a new language. We also have stronger integration. We recognize that while our program, our cohort students are really strong, sometimes they're in the program year after year. And after 6-7 years, they get to know each other very well. And so how can we make sure that we also expand opportunities for them to build relationships with students outside of the immersion program so that they're prepared and ready, especially when they go to middle school? And so there are several opportunities that we're embarking in this year. We have learning community partnerships between immersion learning communities and communities that are not immersion. And so you may see pictures or hear of stories of students having maybe morning meeting together or learning celebrations together, and maybe playing in the playground of other folks. And this is just a way to increase additional friendships with students that are outside of the cohort. Our grade 4 and 5 students are also joining our world language class. In grade 4 and 5, before the school year, we had a foundational skills class, and we have learned as our adoption of our curriculum, with teachers teaching foundational skills in the Better Immersion curriculum. There's also an opportunity for students to join the world language class, and there are 2 main reasons why we are joining world language in 4th and 5th grade: to facilitate a smoother transition to middle school, and we'll talk a little bit about that middle school pathway in a bit, and also our students in immersion are really building language skills around content, around literacy, math, science, and social studies. And so our world language block is to really facilitate stronger skills and have practice opportunities with more social language. We piloted a capstone trip to Beijing last year. A common feature in many immersion and dual language programs is to have a capstone trip in the last year as a way of celebration, as a way of accumulation of all the language skills they've built over the years. So we piloted this trip last year. Some of you are parents who had 5th graders who went, and it was an optional trip. Out of 42 students, 36 opted to go, and we really wanted to be thoughtful and make sure this was a successful on multiple fronts. And so we got feedback from students, from parents, from chaperones who went, and it was successful year-round. So we're excited to share that we will have the capstone trip in grade 5 be a permanent part of our immersion experience. We're asking that all students join for us to have a similar experience in the 5th grade. But we also recognize that authentic language opportunities need to happen not just in 5th grade, but all across the years. And so our teachers are thinking about how do we scaffold those opportunities through field trips or additional activities to make sure that there is that scaffolding of social language and authentic language experiences. Holistic support, we are going to continue, we started this last year, we are continuing to investigate how we are providing clear systems and supports for students holistically, students who have different needs academically. We talked a little bit about how that was going to happen in the curriculum, also behavioral and social emotional needs. And we want to make sure that any student at SAS has the support they need. And we are also wanting to investigate how to tighten up homeschool support. Currently, we have EAAs that are offered in the Chinese language that are offered by immersion teachers, sometimes our world language teachers, so you're welcome to sign up for them. And if you as a family decide you want tutoring, we also have educators in our school who do offer after school sponsored tutoring. That was a snapshot of the whole review. If you're very curious to read this 20-page document, you're more than welcome to. I will also send it in the email that I send as a follow-up. but the whole review is there. Review report is there. All right, so we're going to hand it off to another common question a lot of you had. How do we support our children at home?
Thank you, Shuli. Good morning, everyone. Again, let me introduce myself very briefly and quickly. I'm Sherry Peng Lao Shi, and I hold many hats like Rosa in the school. So I am the homeroom teacher to our grade 2 class, and I see some familiar faces here. And also, when I'm not in a classroom, what I do is I support the other teachers as the coach to the Chinese immersion program. This is my first year at SAS, not even year. This is my first month at SAS. So pardon me, I get to use the newbie card. And a little bit about my kind of international journey. So I started off my international bilingual teaching at Stanford American School. I was one of the pioneer team to pilot the bilingual program, which is not the immersion program. It's a whole different idea. So I piloted the bilingual program and I was there for 7 years. I did a brief time at Invictus International School as their deputy principal of their bilingual school. And then I went to GEMS World Academy and also started off their bilingual program at GEMS. So my history has been, coming in to set up bilingual programs at the various schools that, wish to embark on bilingualism with their children or with the families. So that's a little bit about where I have been and where kind of what I've done through my years in bilingual education. So before I came into the bilingual kind of education, I've been teaching in Singapore in the local systems as the Chinese teacher. So a little bit about me on that front. So today, it is my honor and privilege to share a little bit about maybe some of my experience as a parent or what I see other parents do in supporting their child in the learning of 2 languages and more importantly, supporting the learning of Chinese language. I will try my best to cover a more holistic lens from what do I do if I know a little bit about Chinese, what do I do if I know Chinese very well myself, all the way to I don't know Chinese at all. I'm trying here to offer a wide spectrum. Towards the end, of course, I believe that, when great minds come together, we have more ideas. So at the end, I would like to invite you to also scan a QR code to lead us to a Padlet, where I hope we could all share some strategies freely and that we can all build a community together. So at SAS, homeschool collaboration is fundamental to any child's success in their learning journey. So today, we want to extend language learning just beyond the classroom here at SAS and beyond the Chinese immersion classroom. We also want to invite students to share that cultural experience that they have had at school with their families at home. So we want to invite that opportunity to continue to build on learning at home, to have conversations at home. We also want to encourage the joyful and purposeful use of Mandarin, even outside the Chinese immersion classroom and at home. And we also today, hopefully, we want to empower some non-Chinese families to think of some ways to continue the learning at home in a way that is doable and in a way that's joyful and in a way that's maybe not about sitting down to work, to look at assessment books or sitting down to do pages after pages. We're going to see if there is any way beyond just academia learning and to carry the joy of learning Chinese outside the walls of the classroom. So what will you expect from SAS, from your respective child's teacher? If you pay attention, close attention to the newsletter sent out by the various teachers, the homeroom teachers, you will see links to resources. And usually these resources are probably videos or posters to what has been shared in class. So it'll be a great opportunity to have a conversation, to maybe watch the video together. Usually for the kindy ones, it will be rhymes, songs, maybe there could be a sing-along at home. We have a karaoke session. And in grade 2, I manage the grade 2 kind of parent website, the landing page, and on there are like posters for the pinyin sounds and the beginning sounds, the ending sounds, and there are like activities for parents to games for parents to do at home. So there are suggestions in the newsletter. So please do keep an eye out for that. And teachers have put in a lot of effort and very thoughtful in terms of what resources goes out to best support families. There are also learning apps that we use in a classroom, and that's also available for home use. Epic has Chinese books, not a whole bunch. It's usually for the higher readers, but there are Chinese books on Epic. And unfortunately, right now, Epic doesn't have the Read to Me feature for Chinese books, but there are a handful amount of Chinese books available on Epic, so that's something you could try. Level Learning, it's a resource that we use in the classroom, and it's leveled reading. Leveled reading means that the passages that's assigned to your child is for their level. So it's not like a standardized, everyone in grade 2 reads the same books. So if my child needs a little bit more support, that app will pick out the books that are suitable for your child at that point in time. Likewise, if my child is extending but still in grade 2, that app feeds the user with the just right books for them. And when the full implementation of the Better Immersion program comes along, there is a Better Immersion app where there are interactive sections in the app where children can play vocab cards, matching games, pinyin matching games. There's also spelling, self-testing spelling features on there. And the app actually also uses AI in a way that when the student reads to the app, it tells the child how many words have you got correct, what is maybe out of 100% based on the AI, you've got 87% from reading, and what are the words that you need to reread, how can you better improve that kind of reading skills. So Better Immersion, when the app comes along, it's a really, really powerful one. And it uses a lot of AI to support the independent kind of progress that the child can make without an adult or a teacher constantly next to the child. If you allow some screen time at home, what I do at home is whenever we have screen time, we watch Paw Patrol in Chinese. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. We watch Paw Patrol in Chinese. We watch Pokemon in Chinese as well. So there are some features on Netflix that you can just play around. Not all films and not all selections have that Chinese feature. But just be creative and try it out. So it's interesting when my children, when they have a conversation with their peers and they have names, they say their name in Chinese, the characters in Chinese, and another say that Pokemon character in English, and it's kind of interesting. But just like in a way, be thoughtful with what are the options that we have, and just mindfully, like, is there a Chinese sub to it, or is there a Chinese dub to it? It's just if your child has screen time opportunities at home. During COVID, I know a lot of children had screen time, and there was also a period of time during COVID which I felt grateful for, in terms of like there were a lot of really well curated and created resources on YouTube to support the home learning at that time. So we have Little Fox Chinese, but I think that's really for the kinder and grade 1s. I get my kids to listen to podcasts before we go to bed. And a lot of bedtime stories in Chinese as well. So I kind of star a few playlists on my Spotify account. And before we go to bed, we actually have like a bedtime routine. So the bedtime routine is we're going to share what we're grateful for that day. We're going to kiss goodnight. And then I play that Spotify playlist, and we just follow that kind of the bedtime story that comes. So if there is like a festive season, say Christmas, and there's also a story on there's a Christmas story. So there are lots of available, even if it's not screen, say Spotify stories, even on car rides. You could also tune into Chinese radios to just create that extra layer or opportunity or window for Chinese kind of interaction at home. So homework doesn't start till grade 3, but The materials that you see on your tables, foundational skills materials or books, and small readers will be sent home starting from kindergarten. If reading can be challenging at home, there are lots of tools that you could find at Popular online, reading pens to support our non-Chinese speaking families. What I have sometimes tried, I tried to use the Google Lens to take pictures as well to just see the accuracy of Google Lens. So that could be something you might want to consider. Yeah, so we have lots of tools to help us. I follow this lady on social media. I get ideas from her. So I don't get fees for promoting her, but I want to do a shout out to her. So this is Spot of Sunshine Chinese. She is a bilingual mom, and she has that's her QR code to her Instagram account. And I get some ideas from her site as well. So whenever there is shows and movies, right? She has she gives suggestions, or books with pinyin to read, popular Chinese playlist songs, and festive seasons if you want to make tang yuan. And she talks about how can we make that, and that's her recipe, and she shares that as well. So I actually refer to her quite a bit when I think of ideas at home to engage my two little ones at home. So I might seem like in teaching in an immersion program, my Chinese, you would think, oh, my children must be good in two languages. My children are very Singaporean, meaning their Chinese are just for within the walls of the classroom, and when they speak to their friends, it's in English. When they speak to one another, it's English. When I speak to them in Chinese, they answer me in English. So I understand what the situation at home is likely gonna be. What I would suggest is really to persevere. So that's if you follow someone online that you would like to give a shout out to, or you want to recommend a fellow family here in our community, there's a Padlet in a bit to recommend that, to put that recommendation as well. From one parent to another, I talked a little bit about my children. The learning of two languages is a very demanding process. It's a very cognitively demanding process. Please give them time and patience. The analogy would be, if you want to bake a cake, baking is probably 180. Rosa maybe knows it more than I do, but I'm just going to wing it. Maybe 180 degrees C for 30 minutes. It doesn't mean that if you put it in the oven for 200 degrees C for 5 minutes, and that cake is going to turn out the way it is going to look at 180 degrees C, 30 minutes. So it takes time. It's not putting our kids in a pressure cooker situation and that we get the results that we want to. Get them to reread, get them to share conversations with you, get them to share their learning with you, and allow for silence in a way that's the response. Because sometimes they just can't get things out due to their brains growing. Just accept that it's a part of growing process, and be patient and show them grace. And the reason why it matters is children thrive when learning feels safe, even outside of the classroom, at home. It's a safe environment for them to share what they know or what they're still learning. Oh, sorry. There we go. Again, I go back to, it's a cognitively demanding process, learning two languages. And it takes grit and takes perseverance. And we as adults, what more can we do then to model that grit and perseverance? And don't give up, right? Simple, celebrate small wins, even as simple as, I noticed that, yesterday you couldn't read that word, and today you could read that on your own. Small wins. Small wins, when it accumulates, it becomes a big win. 积少成多. And children feed off our energy levels as well. So when we get flustered, when we don't see the results that we want, or we get flustered, they sense that in us, and they associate sometimes the negative energy quicker than the positive one. So if we are very mindful of type of energy and the words that we use with our children. This might come as a when I started teaching as a teacher, translanguaging was quite a unknown to me. I don't know what it meant. But through the years, maybe let me share a little bit of my understanding. Translanguaging simply means that we use all the different knowledge that we have in our language to help with learning. So it's a lot about metacognition, about thinking about learning. When we tell our children, no, you can only use Chinese or you can only use English, it might come to a point where they associate, oh, then one language is more superior than the other because I'm not allowed to use that. I'm only allowed to use that other language. So I know a lot of our families, we come from community where we speak many languages, and we should it is really important that we honor all the languages that we speak, and there is no one better than the other. There is a time and a place to use one language over the other, but there is no superiority over the languages that we speak. So that's a little bit about my understanding of translanguaging. So in the classroom, I sometimes use English to help support the teaching of Chinese. For example, in yesterday's math class, we talked about data, and 是什么比什么多? What, if I do a literal translation, what compare what more? Okay, sometimes you hear Singlish like that, right? What compare what more? What compare what less? So that's how Chinese is framed. However, and then I introduce to kids, can someone tell me this English sentence that translate this, that explains 苹果比橙多, apples more. Apples compare oranges more. That's literally what it means. And students then came up with there are more apples than oranges. And then we talked about more, 多 is actually at the end of Chinese sentence, but more in English comes before. So there is metacognition. We compare the languages, and then that furthers the learning. I'm not saying that we are translating. We are furthering the learning of the languages and making connections with the languages that we speak. There is a book, A Parent's Guide to Mandarin Immersion, if you wish to kind of do a little bit of self-help at home. It's actually for those that want to understand the learning of Chinese, the acquisition of Chinese language and the aspects of a Chinese immersion program. And here's a quote by the author. She emphasizes that parents must have confidence in our immersion program's mission, staff, and instruction, and treating themselves as partners in their child's immersion journey. So there's an example of a book here. I'm not sure, maybe someone can help me. Can parents check out like books from our school library? I'm not sure about that, but yes, oh yes, thank you. I see parents helping, thank you. Yeah, and it's also on Amazon. I'm gonna invite, maybe we don't have 5 minutes, but I do want to invite parents to scan this QR code. It will bring you to a Padlet. If you have got strategies to share or you have wonderings on there, just go on, scan the QR code, go on to that plus sign. If you feel comfortable leaving your name, then you might want to change your name, change that name to your name. But if you feel like you want to be a sneaky alligator, then go ahead and be a sneaky alligator. It automatically generates a cute and funny name. But if you feel like you want to, change it to your name so that we can get back to you if you've posed a question. But this is a platform for all of us to come together to share some strategies that we use at home, YouTube links, I don't know, social media accounts. I will freeze the Padlet at the end of the week. So we have today and tomorrow. And when I freeze the Padlet, you can go ahead and download it as a PDF, or you can constantly refer it, go back to refer for more strategies. So I'm gonna maybe 2 minutes, and then I'll pass on to our Director of World Languages. To Shuli to talk about our handbook.
All right. I hope you're able to hear some good ideas that you might want to use at home with your own children. If you haven't put some of the things that you do at home, take some time to do that. We have 2 more things to talk before our Q&A session. I know we've given you a lot of information today, so I just wanted to share. This link will be updated in our parent portal in the next week or so, and I will also share it out with my email. This is our Chinese Immersion Handbook. It is revised. There are some updates from last school year. Sorry, I'll give you a second to scan that if you want. Okay. Communication reminder, our immersion program teachers are going to be focused, as all of our SAS educators, to prioritize their time focusing on instruction and planning. This is just a general guideline as to when they will get back to you. Our 4th and 5th grade immersion teachers do serve many students, so please give them more time, about 72 hours. If it is an email that you've sent that requires a longer response, then you can also expect it would take longer for our teachers to respond. But we really want to make sure they're prioritizing their time with instruction and planning. So refer to the handbook. They are also, we have parent coffees throughout the year. We also have parent conferences. So just wanted to give a reminder about communication. Then I would like to introduce you to Paloma, and she's going to share a little bit about our middle school and high school pathways.
Hi, welcome. And I know that you've been sitting here for more than 1 hour and you might be very tired, so feel free to stand up or move or whatever. I'm going to try to honor our time. But I think it's important that you know me a little as a person, as my journey too with the languages, so we can support your kids also and in the best way possible. And you can see why I care and why languages is my passion. So I am Spanish. I'm from Spain, from a city next to Barcelona, in front of the Mediterranean Sea. And if you know a little about the history of Spain and how it looks like, Spain has four official languages. So the main one is Spanish. And then depending on the area, you have another one. So I'm from the area that we have 2 national languages. My family was not from this area of Spain. So my parents couldn't speak that language because they were not required. So when I started with, and then we had political issues and that language was not taught in the schools for more than 30 years. So when I got to the school, I had everything in Spanish, but one class, only one class that was as English. It was the other language in Spain, which is Catalan. When we were transitioning into being a democracy, more and more and more of that language and more of the value of that language was included in the classrooms. So I'm pretty much a product of an immersion kind of system. When I finished with all my studies, I was able to actually implement and create the first Catalan program in Ireland, in Dublin, for the Spanish embassy, and it was the first Catalan program in the whole world, in the Spanish embassy. So that's why I'm very passionate. When I hear sometimes that people say, like, you know, you're going to be confused about learning 2 languages, or 3 languages, or 4 languages. English is my 3rd, I speak 4. I don't think so. I don't believe it so, because I'm the product of not. I'm a product of being able to be bilingual with Catalan after I finish all my studies. And this is what I want for your kids too. When I finished high school, my degree was on linguistics. So it's called Filología Hispánica, a Spanish philology that includes literacy and linguistics. And then I have 2 masters, one on pedagogy, and the other is about language acquisition. So for me, this is a passion. And you might think like, yeah, but you are Spanish and you're not the Chinese teacher. I don't have to be to lead the structures. My goal in here and the way that I see is that I'm going to help the structure, to be strong enough to support all the amazing team that I have. And I'm going to overview those. So, as I said, when I finished my career, I went to Ireland. I taught there Spanish and Catalan. for the Spanish Embassy. I moved back to the and then I moved to National University of Ireland to teach Spanish. After that, I moved to Spain to the university level. After that, I moved to North Carolina to teach middle school public schools in Chapel Hill. After that, I moved to Taiwan, and I started my career in Asia, in Taichung. After that, I moved to Korea, in Seoul, and in Seoul, I implemented the Spanish program for middle school and high school. They didn't have middle school at that time. After that, I came here, and I taught here for 8 years. I was in middle school and in high school. In both cases, I was the head of the department, and I went through the tough times of COVID, where we had to create the systems to serve the community without being at the school. It was a very, very, very tough time when we had to create all the programs for COVID. After those 2 years and a half that we were here locked, I needed a break, and I decided to go to Tokyo. So I was there for 3 years, the last 3 years, and I'm back here. So I'm what is called a boomerang, which is a person that I've worked here for 8 years. I left for 3, and I'm coming back. And after all of this, you can guess how old I am right now. But yeah, many years doing this. So I'm very honored to be here because I know people and I know kids that have been in this program since the program started. Those are some of the faculty kids, and I've seen the progression, and I've seen also that when the program is growing, has growing pains. So we are here, and I'm here to hear you. That's my first goal, and to help to make these programs the best. That's my goal. I'm a little competitive. So I want your kids to be the best. Okay, so, okay. As we were mentioning, your kids are in immersion, and they are going to be in immersion till the end of elementary school. What they are seeing, it's their same cohort all the time. And again, we felt, and after your feedback, that they needed a little bit of more social and expanding the language that they were using, social language and more expanding. And I understand that some of the topics might be like wonders. What are you doing? What are you trying to tackle? But as I said, I feel like in my house, no one could speak Catalan. The way that I learned it was by the social connections that I had. So when I went out with my friends, talking about anything. So what we feel right now is that your kids are in immersion, they are performing exceptionally well. But what about expanding that knowledge? So we prepare them for the future too, and we prepare them to be as high as possible when they graduate. This is a long-term goal. It's not just elementary school, middle school or high school. I think one of the subjects that helped me the most after, and I know that I'm passionate about languages, but I wasn't passionate about English, let me tell you. I was not when I was learning it. And it has been the subject that helped me the most to communicate and to build the bridges. So that's why I think we need to create that environment of joy and also achievement for your kids so they keep learning, not just till 7, 8, 12, but all their lives. So when your kids transition into middle school, this year we created one extra class that is called Intermediate High for grade 4 and grade 5. Does it mean that your kids are not in immersion? No, your kids are still in immersion. They have 1 extra hour of class where they are going to be expanding in this language. Okay, so that's the goal. When they go to middle school for content, they are going to have several elective Chinese courses. Also, you're going to have the choice to take middle school advisory in Chinese. And then there are going to be different paths, 3 different paths. The path that usually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, I have Amy here to correct me if it's needed, that is what I call, and sorry about that, CLAL, in a very Spanish way, which means Chinese Language Acquisition and Literacy course. That's the regular path. Then we are going to have still the world language path for your choice, and we can discuss this person by person. And there is another course that is called CLA, which is language arts in Chinese. Okay, so we will have 3 choices. The logical path right now will be, not logical, but one of the choices, and the one that the most of you are going to choose is the Chinese language acquisition and literacy. So we can balance content and also the social language that we were talking about. But we can expand more on that. I know that I'm very close to the time to be over. And I want to remind you that I have a coffee next week coming up. So if you want to come over there, next Tuesday, I think it is, we have another coffee where I'm going to be talking about the transitions and the whole program as it all, not just as an immersion. So this is the 3 paths. These are the 3 paths that we are talking right now in middle school. And remember that Julie will share this with you so you can have a better look. Every year, and as I mentioned, I'm new, we are revisiting everything and we are making the adjustments. But this is what we have right now, and this. So you will say, what is the difference between Chinese language arts and Chinese language acquisition and literacy? To me, we are tackling 2 different learner profiles. That's it. Okay? It's not that one is more difficult than the other, depending on who you are. It's very personalized as a learner. So we try to simplify it as much as possible in here, but CLA is for students that have, because of they have command of Chinese in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. That is at the same level as the heritage speakers at that age. They are beyond language acquisition at that time. So they are going to do Singapore mother tongue curriculum, and it's going to be based on literacy. For the CLAL classes, we are still working on this acquisition part. But we are supporting also with literacy. So those are the 2 different ones. And I would like to avoid the narrative that one is more difficult than the other, because it depends on individualized learning on your kid. And my goal in here also is to help your kid on growing. You see that the standards are also different ones, okay? So both of the tracks are going to allow you to achieve AP, which is a standardized test that gives college credits as a 9th graders. After AP, which is a milestone for most of us, they are going to be designed, we are now developing some of them, but they are already in Chinese, 3 AT courses. So we are making sure that your kids have that long life learning through the whole high school too. And sorry that I passed 2 minutes into the time. I'm so sorry. I just want to mention that I'm very honored, and my door is always open to meet with you, so please connect with me and come to the coffees too. Give me any comments, any advice, I will read it all, promise, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for being here, and I pass it to Julie.
All right, thank you so much we're coming to the end. As you can tell, we're a diverse community. When you signed up for the RSVP, we read all of what you were most interested in, and we planned our coffee. So this is why it's so comprehensive. So thank you so much for being here. Some things that are coming up. Grade 5 capstone trip information will be virtual. I'll send information to grade 5 teachers. We also have, for those of you in grade 5, we will have a immersion-specific coffee to unpack a little bit of what Paloma talked about, more of that transition. And then we'll also have a grade 3 and 4 immersion coffee later this spring. There may be additional coffees that we'll have as well, but I will make sure to communicate them in due time. All right, so this brings us to our end. Is there any questions that were not answered yet that may pertain to the whole group? We'll open the time for that.
So I was reviewing some of those the better immersion books. So I noticed that a couple, especially in the level, I guess 5 and higher, they have some topics that's a little bit like, for example, in the level 5, they have one article talked about the Chinese Exclusion Act. It's very brief. It's like one paragraph. It's a pretty, I think, profound topic that could probably merit more discussion. So I was wondering if this can be less like independent on its own, but more integrated with the social studies, so the teacher can provide more historic perspectives on why this is happening. So,
Yeah, that's the.
Yeah.
The Better Immersion does layer on and integrate with social studies and science. And actually what we're doing as we implement this, we're looking what are our social studies units. For example, we talk about migration in 5th grade. And how can we link what's happening in the Chinese curriculum to what else is happening in social studies or science. And so that is very much something that we're wanting to, as we implement the curriculum, make sure we're looking at and we teach in accordance with what's happening in ELA and social studies. But great topic, yeah.
Yeah, just another example is there's one article talked about money being not that important. It's something about being poor and versus why money is no longer. But I find the logic could be more tight. I guess, like, why is money as a currency not important or as a philosophy? It's just, I think, maybe need a little bit more, like, I think from the social studies.
Like we do with all curriculum, when educators teach it, we look at the curriculum and we see what is, but we always refine it based on what our values and our goals are in SAS or in our program. So definitely not everything that you see in there, if it needs more expansion or it needs more context, that is something as educators we'll make sure we do.
Hi. I know this is the first year where the immersion class has transitioned to the world language program. So I just wanted to understand how is it that world language complements or, provides additionally what they're already learning in immersion? And I'm curious about the overlap, or maybe there isn't one.
Yeah, what the standards for world languages are ACFL. ACFL is based in an inverse triangle where the small, like the lower levels, the topics are very, very, very narrow. And as soon as you're growing, they get wider, wider, wider in functions and in the sophistication of the language that you're going to be using. Our idea when we were creating that class or when we were planning on merging was like, okay, what is the level that those kids are going to have? And again, it's the first year that we are going to implement this, and we can modify things, okay? Like we have the flexibility. However, we were talking more about expanding, not only staying on the curricular like social studies, math, like topics, but expanding the amount of topics while we are still acquiring language, completely different vocabulary. So it's giving your kids another hour to keep expanding the acquisition and also the topics. That was the idea behind. And again, we can review the topics and everything. Yeah.
The world language, for someone whose oldest has just transitioned from immersion to middle school, and now he's doing CLAL, so it's more like a world language class. And I just feel like the exposure in the younger classes would have helped him. Because now the way he's learning Chinese in that class is very different. And I think so, hopefully, I'm hoping that this introduction would help my younger two into learning, because it's very different now that he comes home and so the way immersion is versus how the world language courses are taught, not to say that they're better or worse, they're just different. So I think it would have helped him if he had had that exposure learning with other kids in that. And I just had a quick question. I don't know if you guys have the specific numbers. I'm just asking because my fourth grader helping my second grader who's doing pinyin versus she never did it, was like she looked down upon him and told him he didn't know the characters he's supposed to know, da 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 da. So I don't know if you guys have numbers on what kind of effect it's had, because I know that was a change in curriculum for the younger grades now. Is that actually helping in terms of their writing and literacy rates? Because I know that was something that you guys had discussed before bringing that change in.
So your question is, how has pinging helped? Yes, adopting pinging at a lower grades came with lots of research and also looking at what similar schools are doing at the same age level. Because we just started a pinging pilot, we haven't quite looked at that data. We want to make sure we have a whole year first. So that is something that we can come back to you. But in regards to being able to have more skills and tools in their tool belt when tackling new texts, pinging has been really helpful.
My question is more geared towards you with the world language transition. You kind of discussed those two tracks there in that last slide that you shared. How are we deciding between those? Is that guidance given by the teachers, or how is that decision made?
Yeah, right now the students, it's more than 30 points of data that the teachers are gathering, plus a final test, and we are reviewing that placement at this point. My goal for the end of the year, and I hope I can achieve it, is to have clear, clear structures that can be communicated and transparent to the parents, so you know exactly what the process is. Because I feel like it has been a lot of questions about clarity. So right now, it's, yes, they gathered, like I think it was 13. I don't want to make up the number, but it was around 13 points of data through the year, plus a final test, and you will give a recommendation based. So, yeah. But again, I'm reviewing that. I'm on the process. Well, here and there and there.
I just want to tag on about the questions when in grade 4 and 5 they break out into the world language class to join different world language classes in grades 4 and 5. I took a look at the Better Immersion books that you helpfully provided. I love it, first of all. It just seemed to me that the Better Immersion curriculum seems harder, slightly harder than even the near native class textbooks in grades 4 and 5. So I want to know if that was true, whether I was right in that, and also if so, what's then the logic of doing a additional curriculum that's of a slightly lower level?
I think your question speaks to what Paloma was saying about they're not necessarily, one is not necessarily harder than the other. They're for different learner profiles. And so when looking at Better Immersion, the world language track, correct me if I'm wrong, Paloma, is you're attaining just language. In immersion, you're attaining content through language. So in some ways, you will be having deeper discussions on different various topics or content areas, social studies, science, that you would not be having in the immersion class. So the purpose of the world language class is really to develop more of that social language. So some of that vocabulary may be a little bit different.
No, I agree with everything that you said. Yeah. Did we answer your question? Did we answer?
I think so. I'm going to digest it.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Johan. I have 2 boys in the Chinese immersion program in grade 3 and grade 5. I have a more bigger picture question, and that is the universities in China require HSK, Hanyu Shuping Kaoshi, to enter 4, 5, 6, depending on which area. And the question I have is, when do the kids in Chinese immersion expect to reach that level? 4, 5, 6. Have you done any tests? Do you know at what point? Because that would be kind of a logical requirement, you know, at some point during the course of the studies here. And at the end of this grade 5 Chinese program, is there a third party kind of Chinese level that as that they can expect to reach? Like I know that again HSK has a kids test language level, and I was wondering whether they've reached that level or whether they haven't by the end of grade 5. Thank you.
You are now tackling one of the elephants on the on the room, because we are conscious that we created our own program and we were not looking at third-party data points, and we're reevaluating that, and that is going to be part of the process. Right now, that is not answering your question flat and quick, but it's on the process of reevaluating how we assess and how we place. That I hope by, I don't know, I don't want to give you an exact, because I want to keep myself accountable for what I say, but it's being reviewed, so I can answer that question in the future this year at one point. Right now it's not.
Yes, they do. So the word list, the list of words, sorry, too loud. So the list of words that Better Immersion uses is a combination of HSK, is a combination of Corpus, Taiwan's review research on, like, with all the newspapers around, the Chinese newspapers, magazines. So they picked out like the word list, the most high frequency word list. So that's the Corpus list, high HSK list, and then correlates to the ACFO standards. So if that's any kind of assurance, the Better Immersion program, if your child were to finish the 8 books, will be equipped to take the HSK test. However, the testing system, say how you prep for the test, how do I prepare for a listening test, how do I prepare for a writing test, how many questions are there in the comprehension, so when answering, this kind of testing strategies, no, the Better Immersion will not prepare your child for testing strategies to effectively test well at HSK. But does your child graduate with the content that will prepare them to take HSK? Yes, they will. I hope I clarified that, because HSK is a test that you have to prepare for. You can't just sit without knowing anything. You have to prepare for like comprehension test. So how many questions am I expecting? No, maybe I have more families in there that know more than I do. I'm sure of that. But I think that's something we can, have more communities talk about that.
Hi, my children are in grade 4 and 6, and they've missed this transition to the new pinging methodology of teaching. How is the program going to address the gap for these students that are in grade 4 and 5 in elementary and then onwards?
We have 2 curriculum specialists working full-time at the Office of Learning, reviewing everything that we are doing and revisiting. And that's why it's so appreciated also, your feedback when it comes. So one of the teachers that is a curriculum specialist used to be an immersion teacher, so she knows the program very well. And we're just, reevaluating constantly what we are doing, and also training the teachers on what has been done in immersion, so we can serve the kids that haven't been part of that transition that we are talking about.
Are you going to focus a bit more for grade 4 and 5 on getting them up to speed on pinging, or is it going to be
It's a new program. It's a new class that we are offering, so we have our eyes constantly on seeing that. And
Fourth grade students have had the pinging curriculum. They started it last school year. So, but what Paloma is saying is, as we continue to build this program out, that immersion context is still very central as they're creating the content for the world language classes. And so knowing the gaps and the strengths of the program is central as we continue to build out the program middle school and high school. All right, last question.
Just now, I think you said that the better immersion went up to book 8, and that book 8 was kind of like the entry level to taking the HSK. Like they would be able to take the HSK. Sorry, I might have misheard you.
Yeah. So our school doesn't, we don't send our kids to take HSK.
Yeah, I know that,
Yeah.
but I'm saying that as a level that they can attain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bombs here. So this summer, I took my boy from G4, and as you know, the G4 we only have 4 boys in the class, and then we are not that fast compared with the girls. And then I asked him to take HSK level 3. After 3 days later, he took the exam, and then he passed. And then there's no preparation, and then his score was incredibly high. He's listening. He got wrong 2 questions, reading all correct, writing all correct. And again, I didn't do any preparation. After 3 days, he got correct. So my major is Chinese, and I can speak read, but I only speak in Korean to him. And then I totally agree. If you want to have HSK, the tests, there's a strategy. Because when I had HSK when I was in uni, just studying 1 month, and then take a mock test, and then memorize all the words, you can get a high score. But what I like with the school is if you see his homework, and then if you see all the grammar, it's really related to the HSK. So I'm pretty sure if Marcus can finish a grade 4 or 5, I think he can pass HSK 5, no problem. So just don't.
Yeah, my older
don't
daughters also did HSK. Actually, my question was, do we ever get to book 8? That was just my question. Because on the table, I think it was grades 4 and 5 were doing, sorry, 4 books 4 and 5, right? Grade 5, 6, 7, 8. Got it.
All right. Thank you so much for all of your time. We still have food and coffee if you want to grab some. If you have any further questions, email me or Paloma, and we'll get back to you. Thank you again.